Your Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's cracking, Blackhawks fans? Welcome on in to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jack Bushman, also Blackhawks beat writer for Chicago Hockey Now. Quick reminder to go and check out Locked On Blackhawks on Instagram if you haven't done so already. And also have to let you know that today's episode is once again sponsored by FanDuel. Go and download the FanDuel app now or check out FanDuel.com to get $300 worth of bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All right, Blackhawks fans, happy game day as the Hawks return to action here tonight at 5:45 p.m. Central Time. Make sure to make note of that when they face off with the Lightning down in Tampa Bay. And another note, this is also an ESPN Plus / Hulu game, which I know ESPN Plus, their broadcasts aren't typically great, and there's been that news bomb about them, like extending ads while play is going on. Not a great look for ESPN, in addition to what was said by the ESPN baseball broadcast team. I remember when the Chicago Cubs were facing off against the San Diego Padres. But anyways, this is, another outlet that people can watch the Blackhawks through. I know there's the whole CHSN fiasco that's still going on, even though they have agreed to a deal with Xfinity. That's not necessarily the main way that people watch television nowadays, with YouTube TV being so prominent. And as someone that has YouTube TV, I'm not exactly too thrilled that CHSN doesn't look like they're going to be able to get a deal done with YouTube TV, unfortunately. But I do have ESPN Plus, so that's at least how I'll be tuning in this evening. But yeah, the Blackhawks have an opportunity to keep it rolling and build off of their recent momentum. They've won 3 of their last 4 games entering tonight's contest, and I feel like they have a good opportunity to do so, even though they have not fared well against the Tampa Bay Lightning since beating them in the 2015 Stanley Cup Final. I do feel like they have a real good opportunity to keep it going here tonight, because it's been a little bit of a shaky, non-usual start for the Tampa Bay Lightning out of the gates, as they've won just 1 of their opening 6 games. And of course, Blackhawks head coach Jeff Blashill is very familiar with the Lightning and how they like to go about their business, as he's facing off with his good buddy John Cooper for the first time as the Blackhawks bench boss after spending the last 3 years under John Cooper as an assistant. So yeah, this would be a really nice one to also go and get for Blashill, who I really continue to be so impressed by here early on in his Blackhawks tenure. But now getting into the updates that we just got from the morning skate that wrapped up about 20 minutes ago at the time of this recording. And again, as I mentioned on yesterday's show, make sure to let me know down in the comment section below, Blackhawks fans, if you want me to keep posting these game day previews right after the morning skate concludes, so we know who's going to be in the Blackhawks lineup. I think that's, from what I've seen so far in the comment section, been the preferred method, but still want to take everyone's opinions into account. And I could also do these early on in the morning, even though that would lead to me kind of guesstimating the lineups for both of these 2 squads. But make sure to give me your opinion on that matter down below in the comment section. But as far as updates that we just got from the morning skate in Tampa Bay, no Jason Dickinson, as I mentioned on yesterday's show. Jeff Blashill said after practice yesterday that he was expecting Dickinson to miss his 2nd consecutive game. And Andre Burakovsky wasn't on the ice for the morning skate either, so it looks like he's going to be out of the lineup for the first time this year, not due to an injury, though. He's currently on a maternity leave, as his wife Johanna gave birth to their 2nd child on Monday. Once again, congratulations to the Burakovskys. But with Andre being out, he's obviously been with Connor Bedard and Tyler Bertuzzi on the top line for the last 5 periods that the Blackhawks have played now, going back to the 3rd period on Friday against Vancouver, when Blashill kind of recognized that Bertuzzi was bringing his A game, moved him on up in place of Colton Dach, along with Bedard and Burakovsky. They fared really well in that 3rd period. And then I also thought they were the most effective trio pretty clearly in Sunday's win over the Anaheim Ducks as well. But with Burakovsky being out, that opens up a spot on that top line along with Bedard and Bertuzzi. And it looks like it's going to be Lukas Reichel who's getting that opportunity here tonight, Blackhawks fans. And I mentioned on yesterday's show, because of Reichel's speed, because of his offensive-minded makeup, and also in addition to how well he played in a handful of shifts together along with Bedard in the Blackhawks' dominant and super fun 8-3 win over the St. Louis Blues last week. I think it makes sense for a handful of different reasons to give Reichel this chance up on the top line to show what he's got. Real big time opportunity for him. And Reichel has actually fared pretty well in his career against the Tampa Bay Lightning also, with points in each of his last 3 games that he's faced off with the Bolts. So good opportunity for him to keep that momentum going that he randomly, I guess, has against the Tampa Bay Lightning, along with Bedard and Bertuzzi. Bedard off to a great start to his 3rd NHL campaign, 7 points through his opening 7 games, had a huge part in Ryan Donato's overtime winner last time out against the Anaheim Ducks. Excited to see how that Reichel, Bedard, and Bertuzzi fares tonight down in Tampa Bay. Then the second line looks like it's going to be the same from last game. Teuvo Teravainen, Frankie Nazar, and Ilya Mikheyev. Mikheyev and Nazar, by the way, both tied for the team lead in points with 3 early on this year. And I mentioned on the recap show that I dropped on Monday, Mikheyev, according to the game score impact chart, was the least effective player for the Blackhawks in that game. I found that to be a little bit curious. I thought his speed was on display once again and made some really sound plays on the defensive side of things. And I think his pace, along with Nazar's, and then obviously the connection and chemistry that Nazar has established with Teuvo Teravainen, makes a lot of sense to keep that trio together here tonight. The Blackhawks' third line at the morning skate, very interestingly, was Sam Lafferty, Ryan Green, and Ryan Donato. It was Colton Dach who was in that spot on the left wing for the third line in Sunday's win. It's another line change. Looks like it's going to be happening for Ryan Donato potentially, and could be leading to Sam Lafferty getting in the lineup for the first time in 5 games. However, the Blackhawks, as Blashill seemingly loves to do at his morning skates, doesn't really tip his hand in terms of what he's going to do or who's going to be the odd man out of this group. Had all 3 forwards that are healthy in Landon Slaggert, Nick Foligno, and Colton Dach skating as the fourth line, while also utilizing 7 defensemen in their usual pairings, which I'll get to here in just a second. But has to, keep it interesting for us dissecting who's going to be the forward that winds up getting healthy scratched. Considering Lafferty was bumped up to the third line, again, that could be meaningless, but I do feel like there's some significance there. And also the fact that Lafferty's been out for these last 4 games, even though he's not a top priority for Jeff Blashill, you do want to keep him fresh. And he's skated during pregame warmups a couple of times, one being out of the lineup lately. So I feel like this is a good spot to get Sam Lafferty in there and provide a little bit of a spark. And that would probably leave either Landon Slaggert or Colton Dach being out of the lineup, and neither are exactly ideal candidates to be healthy scratched, right? I think Colton Dach and his physicality has been excellent. I don't know if he's still currently leading the league in hits, but I know he's up there in that category. And then Slaggert just made his season debut on Sunday, and while, I don't think Slaggert's held in the highest regards either comparatively to a lot of the other young players that are on the professional scene, I don't think you want to be scratching him in just his second game of action. So leaves a really interesting choice on the table here for Jeff Blashill. Nick Foligno is back from his leave of absence. As I mentioned yesterday, seems like everything is going good with his 12-year-old daughter, Milana. And if he's with the team, you think he's going to be in the lineup, especially without Jason Dickinson. And as a veteran guy who has fared pretty well at the faceoff dot since joining on with the Blackhawks, despite being mostly utilized as the wing for a majority of his career, I don't think it's going to be Nick Foligno coming out. So it's a little bit of a tough decision here. If I had to guess right here, right now, I'm going to say Landon Slaggert. I wouldn't, count out Sam Lafferty just because he skated on that third line. Doesn't mean he's going to be in there, but, just makes for a real interesting situation for this Blackhawks forward group. And again, that's without Jason Dickinson and Andre Burakovsky. So I'm really fascinated to see after this contest, as well as just who's going to be in there tonight, how Jeff Blashill is going to determine things in this forward group. Defensively, no changes seeming to be coming. Blashill said he wants to continue using 7 defensemen in the lineup, so I'm guessing that's going to be the case. Maybe he winds up scratching Louis Crevier here tonight and goes with 12 forwards for only the third time this season, but I guess we're going to have to see once we get to pregame warmups. But it was Vlasic and Rinzel as the top pairing. Rinzel has really started to settle in, I've thought, Blackhawks fans. 6 hits, led the team in the Blackhawks win over the Ducks, also has 2 assists over his last 3 games now, leads all Blackhawks defensemen in points, and then Wyatt Kaiser continues his spectacular start to the season, and I thought has really helped stabilize Artem Levshinov after a shaky first couple of games to the season, and then Matt Grzelcyk and Connor Murphy rounding things out on the third pairing. Louis Crevier was utilized as the 7th defenseman. If Blashill randomly decides to only dress 6 tonight, I'm guessing he would end up being the odd man out. And then Spencer Knight, baby, continues to be getting frequent starts for the Blackhawks in his first full season with the team. Was out there for the morning skate and looks like he's going to get the start for the 6th time this season. And he's, of course, off to an excellent start with a 1.96 goals against average and .937 save percentage, despite only having a 2-2-1 record. He really, I think, has been on his A game in all 5 of his first outings. We'll see if he can keep that going tonight. Against the Lightning team, he's fared pretty well against in his career when he was with the Florida Panthers. He has a 3-1-0 record with a 3.11 goals against and .901 save percentage in 4 career games. And I believe in each of his 3 wins, he's allowed 3 goals or fewer. And just unfortunately in the one start that he's lost to the Lightning, I think he gave up 5 in a period or a period and a half and ended up getting yanked. But in his wins, he's been stellar. Hope that's the case again here tonight. Also has 2 playoff appearances against the Lightning with a 1-1 record as well. But that takes care of the Blackhawks side of things in terms of their projected lineup for tonight's matchup in Tampa Bay. Coming up in just a moment, I'll get into Tampa's side of things, including a familiar face making his NHL debut against the Hawks. But first, I do got to talk to you all real quick about Monarch. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. But that's why there is Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, super easy-to-use interface, both available on your phone and on your laptop. And Monarch does all of the heavy lifting for you so that you can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, and finally feel in control of your money without ever having to touch a spreadsheet. So don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks any longer. Go and use our promo code at our promo code of Lockdown NHL in all caps, at monarch.com, and you'll also get half off on your first year. Again, that's 50% off on your first year at monarch.com when you use our code Lockdown NHL in all caps. I also got to talk real fast about Rougiette. Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything, and we've all heard them before. It's just stress, I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors. So go and visit rugiet.com/LocdownNHL to get 15% off on your first order. Again, that's rugiet.com/LocdownNHL. And don't forget to use our code LocdownNHL in all caps so they know exactly who sent you. Rougiette, stop making excuses and start making moves. Real quick before I get into segment 2, as always, just a reminder to please go and smash that like button, subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube, and again, check out Locked On Blackhawks on Instagram as well. Greatly appreciate all the support, Blackhawks fans. Segment 2 for the Tampa Bay Lightning and their side of things here this evening. Like I mentioned off the jump, hasn't been an ideal start to their season. They've lost 5 of their opening 6 contests, 3 in a row coming into tonight's game, but they have had 4 days off since their last contest. So kind of an opportunity for this team to reset a little bit. They do have still, while it is, there's new faces compared to the Tampa Bay Lightning dynasty runs in the early 2020s, but they still have a lot of veteran leaders in that locker room, guys who have been through the ups and downs that happen in the regular season. And it also allowed them, I think, to get a little bit healthier, which has been a problem for them early on in the season. So Blackhawks have to be ready for a fresh Tampa Bay Lightning team to hit the ice this evening as they try to get back on track. In terms of the Lightning's projected lineup, they actually had an optional morning skate here this evening. So still some projections going on in terms of who's going to be in, who's going to be out. However, we did have a pretty good indication based on the forward lines and defensive pairings they utilized in practice yesterday, with Jake Guentzel, Braden Point, and Gage Concalves serving as the top line, Brandon Hagel, Anthony Cirelli, and then Nikita Kucherov, who's been out a couple of times in the opening 6 games with an illness. Looks like he's going to be back as he participated in practice yesterday. Wasn't on the ice for the morning skate based on what I saw, but from everything I've researched, seems like Tampa Bay is expecting him to be in the lineup along with former Blackhawk forward, of course, Brandon Hagel on the second line, who hasn't had a particularly good start to his season. He's only got 1 assist through the opening 6 games. Jake Guentzel, by the way, is Tampa Bay's leading scorer with 1 goal and 5 assists for 6 points, while both Braden Point and Victor Hedman have 5 points. Anthony Cirelli leads the team with 3 goals. But yeah, not been the best start for Brandon Hagel, of course. Now that we know Oliver Moore, Sasha Boisvert were the 2 draft picks for the Blackhawks, kind of makes breaking down the trade a little bit easier. However, we still don't know exactly how impactful Oliver Moore, who's looking phenomenal, by the way, early on in his first pro season down with the Ice Hogs, as well as Sasha Boisvert, who I have super high hopes for. He's been a little banged up and I think is also dealing with an illness of his own currently with BU and college hockey. But I'm very excited for both of those players. Obviously, Brandon Hagel has turned into one of the best 2-way players in all of hockey for Tampa Bay, which I don't think I ever saw him having this high of an offensive ceiling, but I knew he just played a winning style of hockey and made plays all over the ice, almost like a 6'1", 6 foot. Think Hagel's, 6 foot. Not exactly sure off the top of my head, but a little bit of a bigger Frankie Nazar with the way he goes about things and just mucks it up along the boards. He's an incredible player, is Brandon Hagel, but hasn't been off to the best start here this season. Third line for the Lightning, Oliver Bjorkstrand, who I swear, for whatever reason, he always seems to make an impact or find a way on the stat sheet against the Blackhawks. Going back to his time with Columbus and with the Seattle Kraken, would not be surprised if Oliver Bjorkstrand registered at least 1 point here tonight against the Blackhawks. Seems to always happen. On the third line with Yanni Gourde and Pontus Holmberg. And then rounding things out on the fourth line, little bit of guesswork I'm doing here for the Lightning. Mitchell Chaffee served as the left wing on the fourth line during yesterday's practice. Zemgus Girgensons, who's been banged up for the Bolts early on this season, he was in the fourth line center spot for practice yesterday, but no official word in terms of whether he's officially going to make his return against the Blackhawks tonight. And then there were no line rushes at the morning skate, and this guy didn't take part in practice yesterday. But the Tampa Bay Lightning interestingly recalled Dominic James, who I'm sure many of you remember, a 6th-round pick for the Blackhawks back in the 2022 NHL draft, played for the United States at the World Juniors, spent 4 years playing college hockey with the University of Minnesota Duluth, was the captain during his senior season there. And the Blackhawks apparently offered him an entry-level contract this past summer, but James ultimately declined it and decided to hit the free agent market, ended up signing his ELC with the Lightning, and now, after tallying 5 points in his opening 4 AHL games with the Syracuse Crunch, is set to make his NHL debut against the same team that drafted him. Sure, that was done purposefully by the Lightning front office to kind of give James a little bit of an extra spark. Not exactly sure where he's going to be in the lineup, but John Cooper did confirm after the morning skate that James is going to be playing in his first NHL game here tonight. So if I had to guess, I'm thinking it would probably come on the fourth line, potentially with Zemgus Girgensons if he makes his return, along with Mitchell Chaffee. And then defensively for the Bolts, Victor Hedman and JJ Moser look to be serving as the top pairing. Ryan McDonough and Eric Chernak, 2 vets on the second pairing. And then Emil Lilleberg, along with Darren Radish, the brother, of course, of former Blackhawks forward Taylor Radish, rounding things out on the third defensive pairing. Max Kragier, I believe, is still dealing with a little bit of an injury and won't be good to go tonight. No official starting goaltender named for the Lightning at the time of this recording. However, considering they're coming off of 4 days off, I'm going to guess that John Cooper is going to go with his number one netminder in Andrei Vasilevskiy. Even though it's been a shaky start to the season for him as well, he's absolutely torched the Blackhawks in his career. 13-0-0 record with a 2.14 goals against average, .930 save percentage, and 1 shutout in 13 career regular season games against the Blackhawks. Chicago hasn't beat them. So almost in kind of like a similar sense to what I talked about going into Friday's matchup against the Vancouver Canucks, an opportunity for the Hawks to keep trending in the right direction and also shed some past demons against this Lightning squad that, as I talked about right off the jump on today's show, has just had the Blackhawks number since they lost the 2015 Stanley Cup final. They are 21-3-2 over the last 26 regular season contests against the Blackhawks. Now, Chicago has fared better recently. I believe they not only split the season series last year, but I think they're 2-1-1 over the last 2 years against the Lightning. Since Connor Bedard's joined on the team, they fared a little bit better. Bedard also has 6 points in 4 career matchups with the Lightning, 3 goals and 3 assists. So hopefully the Blackhawks, like I said, can kind of exercise some demons here tonight against the Tampa Bay Lightning and pick up their 4th win in the last 5 games. Apologies for the quick pause there, Blackhawks fans, but before I wrap up today's episode, still got to get into an update on 2022 second-round pick, Paul Ludwinski. But first, I also got to talk to you all about FanDuel, another one of today's sponsors. And football season is now in full swing, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for every kickoff with a can't-miss offer, because right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your first bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. And what I personally love about FanDuel is that it's super quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. With player props, same-game parlays, and now more ways than ever to get in on the action, are you ready to play? All you got to do is go and download the FanDuel app now, or you can check out FanDuel.com in order to get started. Again, that's FanDuel.com to go and place your first $5 bet and get $300 in bonus bets when it wins. All right, Blackhawks fans, before I get into a couple of injury updates that were provided by the Rockford Ice Hogs earlier this week, do want to get into a note just made by Ben Pope of the Chicago Sun-Times on X, who I believe is the only Blackhawks beat writer traveling with the Blackhawks for this quick one-game road trip before they return home and take on the Los Angeles Kings on Sunday. He just noted that Sam Lafferty, I believe from being the last forward on the ice during the morning skate, looks like he's going to end up being healthy scratched for a 5th consecutive game, which is definitely tough for Sam Lafferty, someone I've actually ran into a couple of times up in the press box in these last couple of games. And, it seemed like he's keeping a good spirit about it, but I know internally, as a competitor, as a human, I'm sure he wants to be in the lineup, but just sadly now with Landon Slaggert healthy and with Colton Dach, those guys just being a priority and potential, young puzzle pieces here in Chicago in the bottom 6, you understand why Jeff Blashill and the Blackhawks front office just want to be providing those guys with more opportunities. But again, that goes into what I talked about on yesterday's show, just seeming like there might be one forward too many right now, because while Lafferty, as tough as it's going to be for him, is likely going to continue being a healthy scratch more times than not, Lucas Reichel, we'll see what winds up happening with his, top line opportunity tonight in Tampa. But based on how the Blackhawks have utilized him in, the last year and a half, 2 years now, he's probably going to be an extra because he's just not necessarily a true fit in the bottom 6. Once Burakovsky comes back, there's probably not going to be that top line opportunity up for grabs unless Reichel absolutely goes and slam dunks it here tonight. So I'm guessing those would be the 2 guys of the group that they want to be regularly healthy scratching. I think if it came down to Colton Dach or Landon Slaggert in terms of which one they'd rather have kind of in and out, it would probably be Slaggert, but I do still feel like Ryan Green possibly being recalled to Rockford, despite, the Blackhawks face-off struggles, that might be the most likely option for them at this point in time. By the way, face-off struggles, kind of diverting myself from the segment 3 here. Forgot to bring this up in segment 2 as I had to pause real quick there, but the Lightning are the 32nd ranked team. 36 would be pretty crazy now. 32nd ranked team in the NHL at the face-off dot through their opening 6 games. The Blackhawks are now up to 24th as they've fared a lot better in that department over the last 3 to 4 contests. Frankie Nazar is up to 47%. Ryan Green is right around 46%. Still been a struggle for Connor Bedard as he's well under that 40% number once again. Really the only criticism I have of his game early on here this season, but very interested to see how that's going to go for a Blackhawks center ice group that's once again without Jason Dickinson tonight against a team that's really struggled at the dot. Segment 3. Got to get on out of here as we're closing in on about 11:45 right now. The Rockford Ice Hogs provided a couple of injury updates earlier on in the week, and I've been talking so much about positive news with all of the Blackhawks prospects playing in different leagues around the globe right now. Unfortunately, got a bad update here today as 2022 second-round pick Paul Ludwinski, who is entering his second year on the professional scene, is expected to miss the remainder of the year due to a left knee injury. The clip that was shared on social media did not look good of him kind of going down awkwardly as someone leaned on his knee, falling to the ice. Definitely a tough break there for Ludwinski, who was the 39th overall pick for the Blackhawks in 2022. I don't think necessarily had the best start to his professional career last year with the Ice Hogs, 12 points in 65 games, 7 goals and 5 assists. Probably is going to wind up being, regardless of what Ludwinski turns into, I just don't think he has the highest offensive ceiling. So probably is going to end up being a little bit of a reach there by the Blackhawks. But another reason why this is tough for Ludwinski is one of his best attributes is his skating ability, and uses that to kind of be a pest a little bit on the defensive side of things and be physical in the dirty areas. So obviously a lower body injury when skating is a strength of his is definitely a tough blow there as well. Hoping, everything goes well for Paul Ludwinski during his recovery period and he can be back fully healthy for the Ice Hogs at the start of next season. Still only 21 years old, still very early into his professional career, but definitely a tough blow for his development over the weekend. Then Marcel, in a little bit of better news here, was cleared to return to action after he underwent off-season surgery. The 2023 fifth-round pick, who's a fan favorite for having the same first name and last name, of course, signed his ELC with the Blackhawks right after being drafted out of the QMJHL. Played in 41 games for the Ice Hogs last year, tallying 5 goals and 8 assists for 13 points, but is mostly going to be known for his size and his physicality. At 6'4", already over 240 pounds. He's really got to make an impact in those areas for the Ice Hogs this season if he ever wants a chance to kind of climb up the ladder and make it to the next level. But that's going to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, everyone. Want to get this out to everyone as quickly as possible. Thank you all again for joining me on the show. Make sure to give me your opinion down below on the comment section on how you prefer for me to do my game day previews. But make sure to subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. Go and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free as well, whenever you may be listening to your podcast. That way you can always get the latest episodes as soon as they become available. Until the recap episode, go Hawks. Would love for them to make it 4 out of 5 with a big win down in Tampa Bay tonight. I'll see you all on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.